Hey friends, V here, and welcome back to Forever Petals by V's YouTube channel. I am so glad to have you guys here. In today's tutorial, we're going to be working with my Large Marigold Template. This is a 10 petal design, but there are two different petal shapes. Now, when you purchase from my Etsy shop, the Printable template has all the petals sized and ready to go. You just want to print those on a thicker cardstock so that way you can trace them out. Now there are 5 of the larger and wider petal shape, and there are 5 of the smaller petal shape. So the larger petals are 6 through 10 and the smaller petals are 1 through 5. Now for this flower, we're using petals 8, 9, and 10, 8 of each. Petal 3, you're going to need 16, and then petal 1 and 2, you're going to need 8 of each. Now I'm using the Galaxy Gold from Astro Brights. It is 65-pound cardstock and I purchased it from Amazon. I did use a total of 33 sheets. Now our first step is going to be to trace out all of our petals. Now, as a paper florist that has been doing this for quite some time, I do trace one petal and then I layer 3 sheets underneath. So that way I cut a total of 4 petals at once. I do not recommend this for somebody just starting out. I would start out with a lower number of sheets, whether that's 1 sheet at a time, or if you want to do 2 sheets to start, just so you don't overwork your hands and, get them cramping up. I recommend to do your best to combine the petals as much as you can that will fit on one 8.5 by 11 sheets. So that way you're not just using 1 petal per sheet when you have a whole bunch of space, okay? So once you finish tracing, you're gonna go ahead and begin to cut out all of your petals. Again, this is probably the most tedious part of the process just because of the cutting. But take your time with this and do your best to cut on the pencil line. And once you're done, you can go back in and erase any pencil markings that you may have on your petals before you start the assembly process. Now, in addition to the petals, you're going to need the base, which I'm using the 7.5-inch octagon base. It's an 8-sided polygon. I'm going to trace that out. The bases are included as their own file in your purchase over on Etsy. So don't forget to print out the bases as well. So once I trace my 7.5-inch base, I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. Now, as far as tools, you're of course going to need your scissors. I'm using the Gorilla Hot Glue Gun and Gorilla Hot Glue Sticks, along with the 3/4 of an inch wood dowel and the 1/2 inch dowel to style the petals. If you're looking for any flower tools, you can purchase those over with PhotoFab Paper Flowers. Miss Julie, she has the flower shaping or flower tool kits in her Etsy shop, and that's what I'm using today. So starting with petal 10, the largest petal, I'm taking the 3/4 of an inch dowel and gently rolling the edges at a little bit of an angle to get both sides to curl away from us. And I'm, again, working with 2 petals at a time. You can work with 4 at a time, just so you're not having to roll every single individual petal by itself. You can group them together and roll them as, a bunch. So I rolled my petal 10. Now I'm going to again go back to using or stacking 4 petals together, and I'm going to create a cut from the base edge of the petal going up, and that's going to be 6 inches long, okay? 6 inches for petal 10. Now, once you finish styling and cutting with petal 10, we're going to go down to petal 9. And this time I'm using the pink wood dowel, which is the 1/2 inch size. And again, I'm going into each edge of the petal and rolling, and doing a little bit more rolling on this one, just so that way it keeps that nice curl. And you're going to do that for, again, all 8 petals of petal 9. This one is petal 9. And the cut up the center of petal 9 is 5 inches. You're going to repeat the steps for petal 8, again, rolling the edges for all 8 of those petals, and I'm doing a 4-inch cut on petal 8, okay? So petal 10 has a 6-inch cut, petal 9 has a 5-inch cut, and petal 8 has a 4-inch cut. Now, once you're styled and cut your petals to prep, You're going to add some glue starting with petal 10. I always go back to the larger petals, adding glue to the left side tab, and I'm going to cross over the right tab on top of that glue. As far as the distance and how much you should overlap, I'm marking here the center of the left tab and the bottom right corner of the right tab. When you add your glue, the bottom right corner of that right tab should meet the center of the left tab, okay? And you're gonna repeat that for all of these petals, same exact placement. Now, I don't mark all of my petals just because I am familiar, and it's just a repetitive thing that I've done, but you do want to make sure that if you need to, you can go ahead and mark them. So I'm just showing you here again with petal 9 that I am crossing over. Now you will notice with petal 9 and petal 8, instead of having the edges of the petals facing down, I actually turn the petals so that way the curls are facing up, okay? So just make sure petal 9 and petal 8, the petals are gonna face up. And you're gonna repeat this process again going into petal 8. Now, I know you didn't see me style or cut the smaller petal shape, which was petal 1, 2, and 3, but we're getting petal 8, 9, and 10 completed first, and then towards the second half of this video, we'll work on petals 1 through 3. So again, here for petal 8, I am just adding my glue and overlapping the same technique that I used for petal 9, making sure those petal edges are facing up. Once you have petal 8, 9, and 10 complete, you're going to take your 7.5 inch base and you're going to mark 1.5 inch away from every straight edge, okay? So for petal 10, the placement is going to be 1.5 inches away from every straight edge of your octagon shape. So you should end up with 8 marks on your base. Okay. Once you have those marked, you're going to add glue to the bottom, starting with petal 10. Don't put more than 1.5 inches thick and place the bottom edge right up to that 1.5 inch mark. Do not cover it. Okay. Don't cover the mark. You want to be able to see them. So I'm just going to continue to place. You will notice that petal 10, the edges will be overlapped on top of each other, but that is okay. It's part of the plan. And you're just going to go one by one until all 8 petals of petal 10 have been added to the 7.5 inch octagon base. Now for this last petal, make sure the right side of it gets tucked underneath the petal on the right, just so that way the overlap stays consistent throughout the entire process. Once petal 10 is completed, you're going to go ahead and take your ruler and pencil, and you are going to create straight lines to connect all of those 1.5 inch measurements we used, and you're going to get yourself another octagon shape. This octagon shape and the straight edges are going to be used as a guide for petal 9. So you'll add glue to the bottom edge base and bring that edge right up to the straight edge of that octagon we created. And again, just adding one by one all the way around until all 8 petals of petal 9 have been placed. And as you notice, petal 9 is being placed in between the petal 10s that are behind it. You don't want the petals to line up. You want them to be staggered. Once you've completed petal 9, you're going to go ahead and add a measurement, a 1/2 inch dot away from every corner of the octagon. And that's going to be your placement for petal 8. So we're just going in by 1/2 inch, and you should end up with 8 1/2 inch marks. You're going to go ahead and add petal 8 one by one, getting more glue to the bottom edge on the back side, and just put it in place. And petal 8 is going to be placed in between the petal 9 layer, okay, as far as the petal placement. And you'll continue until all 8 of petal 8 have been added. Now we're going to get right into petals 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to put our this part of the flower off to the side, and we're going to start styling and working on petals 1 through 3. Now don't forget, There are 2 layers of 8 each for petal 3. I'm going to start with the first set of petal 3. I'm going to take my 1/2 inch pink dowel and I'm going to roll the edges in the same direction upwards, okay? And you're going to do that curl technique for all of the petals on layer 3 as well as layer 2 and layer 1. It may look slightly different for layer 2 and 1, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Now for the first set of 8 for petal 3, you're going to create a 2-inch cut up the center, 2-inch cut on all 8 of that first stack there. Now I'm going in and curling the second set of petal 3, and I'm doing a 1.5 inch cut up the center on that set. Now for petal 2, which I'm curling now, I kind of want to curl the bottom edge because you're going to see here, we're going to funnel petal 2 and petal 1, okay? So I'll go back to that in just a second, but I just want to pre-curl petal 1 and 2 so that way they can curl a little or funnel a little bit easier when we get to that step. So once you have them styled, I'm going to take petal 3, the outer 2 bottom corners are going to meet. So you're crossing over a little bit more than we did on the larger petals, but the 2 outer corners should meet in the middle. And that's for both layers of petal 3. And here we are on the second set of petal 3 that has the 1.5 inch cut, and I'm still crossing over corner to corner. Now for petal 2 and petal 1, you're adding glue to the bottom left as you curl, and it's going to create a little funnel, but you want to keep that V shape so it's a little bit of an open petal. You don't want it to be like a tube or like a cylinder shape. You still want it to have an opening so that way you keep the width of the actual petal. Otherwise, you're going to end up having to add more petals once you start building your flower. But try to keep that V shape when you do the little funnel at the bottom. And then when you're adding the glue, I just kind of flatten out the bottom where I added the glue. It can be a flat surface. So we're gonna go ahead and bring our petals 8 through 10 completed flower done. And I'm gonna take my flexible ruler and I'm once again connecting the edges or the corners of the octagon with those 1/2 inch marks we used for petal 8. Again, when you connect all of them with a straight line, they create another octagon shape, and this is yet another guide for the next layer of petals. So for the first set of petal 3, which is the 2-inch cut, I'm just bringing all of those up to the straight edge of the octagon, making sure that they're placed in between the petals behind it, which is petal 8. And you're going to repeat that until all 8 petals are added, making sure the right side of that final petal kind of sneaks behind the petal on the right to keep the overlap consistent. Then we're going in with our second layer of petal 3. Now for this one, I did not use a measurement. If you need a measurement because you want this to come out perfectly, go ahead and measure 1/2 inch away from the corners. Otherwise, I'm just placing these right on top of the corners of the octagon shape. I just don't want them to be too close to the petals behind them, okay? Once you have that second layer of petal 3, you start going in with petal 2, which is the funneled petals. Make sure the bottom of it is bent and creased so that way you have a base structure to keep the petal sticking up, okay? So I'm using my wood dowel to kind of hold down where I'm pressing that petal into the base, just so I don't have to like burn my fingers off. So just be careful because you are using hot glue. So I'm just gonna continue until all 8 of petal 2 are in between the previous layer, petal 3, and they should all go side by side, okay? This last one, you're gonna kind of just squeeze in. Again, your placement is in between the previous petal layers. Now for this final set of petal 1, there is not going to be a guide. I'm simply adding 4 petals, 1 on top, 1 to the right, 1 at the bottom, and 1 to the left. You're still going to have an opening, but because the space in the center of the flower is getting smaller, you're not going to be able to squeeze all 8 in a single layer. So I'm adding 4 first, and then the final 4 are just going to kind of squeeze into the center to fill in that space. So I'm going, this is the third one of the final 8 petals. And then you're going to see I'm going to go in with the 4th one. So they're basically 1 at the top, bottom, left, and right, since we are running out of space. And then the final 4 petals, you're just going to squeeze into the center to cover up any openings, okay? And I just like to make sure the V part, the opening part of each petal is facing inward. So that way it kind of just closes up that center. And this is pretty much how you create your 23-inch large marigold, friends. I really want to say thank you for your patience. If you didn't know, all of my videos have been removed from Facebook because of the new update. They no longer hold live tutorials more than 30 days. So 8 years of history are gone. So thank you for your patience, guys, as I try to basically start over and get all these tutorials up for you. I truly appreciate y'all's support. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I hope you enjoy this video. And don't worry, there's going to be more tutorials with the same template to come out. So that way you have more options on how to style this as well. So I hope you have a good day. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.